Namaskar friends, I am Dr. Rupesh N. Nakar. Currently I am working as an assistant professor in SET PT Arts and Science College Godhra, which is affiliated with Sri Govind Guru University, which is state university of our state Gujarat. So today I am going to discuss very important topic which comes in BSc syllabus most of the times in botany subject in most of the universities, and it is asexual reproduction. So it is basic and in detail lecture. I would request all to focus on the topic which I am teaching to you right now. So let's start asexual reproduction. So before we start, we should understand what is reproduction, because understanding reproduction will give you exact highlight of asexual reproduction. First of all, reproduction is a process of producing new young ones. It can be plants or animals. If we talk about plants, then reproduction in plants is the process of producing new individual plants from parents to new young ones. It can occur through basically two main methods. First one is sexual reproduction and another one is asexual reproduction. So if we talk about sexual reproduction, it is involved with fusion of male and female gametes, which are known as sex cells, and usually in plants it occurs through pollination and the process of fertilization. Ultimately it is resulted in offsprings with genetic variation, because it involves genes from both the parents, male and female. That's why it has a different genetic makeup compared to parents. Now if we talk about asexual reproduction on the other hand does not involve fusion of gametes, and still it produces offsprings which are genetically identical and similar to the parents, particularly if we talk about the plant. So reproduction is process of producing new plants or new individual. Sexual reproduction involves fusion of male and female gametes. And on the other case, if we talk about asexual reproduction, it does not involve the fusion of gametes, and still it produces offsprings or young ones which are genetically similar to the parents. So asexual reproduction in plants, ultimately it means there are no seeds. Plant can produce roots from cuttings that are placed in water. New potato can be germinated from the stems. Plants can send out runners that grow into new plants. Even the bulbs of onions, they reproduce asexually and they can be converted into new plant. These are some methods where there isn't any fertilization process, but still plants are getting produced from the parent plants. So the asexual reproduction does not involve any kind of fusion or fertilization among male and female gamete, but still they produce new young ones. So this is asexual reproduction. Here are some characters of asexual reproduction. It involves only single parent. There isn't any kind of mother and father. Single parent is enough for asexual reproduction. It does not involve any seed or fusion of gametes. So we won't find any kind of male and female gametes like structure. Instead, part of plant stem, leaves or root can become new plants. So any part of the plant can be utilized in production of asexually propagated plant. It produces new plants, offspring and clones which are genetically similar to the parents. Basically we can say that from which plant a new young one is generated, it is similar to the earlier plant. It allows plant to be produced much faster than sexual reproduction. So the process of asexual reproduction is quite fast, and it gives birth to the new plant very quickly in comparison with sexual reproduction. So there are 6 types of asexual reproduction, and these are fusion, budding, spore formation, regeneration, then fragmentation, and the last but not least vegetative propagation. So we would understand each and every part in detail. So here again by chart we can easily understand that there are different methods of asexual reproduction in plants. Fission, it can be subdivided into binary fission, then another part is multiple fission, then budding is another type of asexual reproduction, then third part is spore formation. By the process of spore, plants get formatted. Then regeneration is also one of the type. Then fragmentation, and along with that, vegetative propagation is quite common method in asexual reproduction, where any part of the plant, just like stem, root, leaf or bud, can be involved in production of new plants. It can be through the process of runner, through the process of tuber, or rhizome or bulb like material can be involved in the asexual reproduction process, and ultimately it gives rise to the new young one. So in the upcoming slides we will understand all these types in detail. So starting with fission, there are two types of fission. Unicellular organism splits to form new organism, and it is a process of reproduction in organisms, particularly in protozoa and many bacteria. Binary, it means it is divided into two daughter cells. In binary fission, one parent cell divides into two after reaching a point where it has a fully grown. In the process, after splitting, parent cell do not exist and two new organisms are formed. For example, unicellular organisms undergo binary fission, that are amoeba, paramecium, leishmania, etc. Here parent amoeba is shown to produce two daughter cells after the process of binary fission. First of all, it reaches to the development stage, then a groove is developed, and this groove reaches up to another groove, finally dividing a cell into two daughter young cells. So fission. Now we talk about multiple fission is another type of fission. Multiple fission is a process of asexual reproduction in which parent cell splits to form new organism. This happens when a cyst is formed around unicellular organism, and inside this cyst, nucleus of an organism breaks into many smaller nuclei. And when the favorable conditions come, the cyst breaks and many daughter cells are produced and they are released finally. For example, plasmodium. Here nucleus is shown in the cell and it gets divided, and after the process of multiple fission, daughter cells are released. So you can clearly understand how multiple fission works in plasmodium. You can understand through this particular figure. Now if we talk about budding, the word bud, it means a small outgrowth. If we talk about plants, there are so many buds: axillary bud, lateral buds, and this kind of buds, they are specifically small ground outgrowth kind of structure. They are small papillae type of structure. And the process of budding, a small bud grows on the body of a parent organism, and when time comes, it detaches itself to form a new organism. It gets separated from the plant. You can see this kind of mechanism in hydra and yeast, where a bud is produced and then it gets detached from the plant, and ultimately it results into new plant. So hydra and yeast, they produce by the process of budding, where they get converted into new young plant. Now spore formation is one of the well-known method of asexual reproduction, where spores are produced in sporangia like structures. Sporangia are round shaped structures which is filled with small and tiny spores, and these each and every spore is capable of giving birth to new plant. So you can see in the picture that hypha contains a sporangia, and then sporangia is filled with spores, and after the bursting of sporangia, the spores are dispersed through the air or water sometime, and then from each and every spore new plants get produced. So spore formation in Rhizophus is shown here. Rhizophus is very common species in fungus group. So spore formation is very common method of asexual reproduction as well. You can also find it in mucor as well. Now regeneration is another method of asexual reproduction. In the process, any part of the body can be converted into whole plant or whole organism. Here example of planaria is given. If it is cut into three parts, all the three parts can be converted into whole body. So it is very unique method of getting regenerated after being cut. So these cells, when they are cut, they move to the proper places to form organs and body parts, and regeneration occurs in both the plants and animals like planaria, hydra. They undergo such kind of regeneration process. Here regeneration in planaria is shown, where planaria, when gets cut into three parts. All the three parts are producing whole organism. Now fragmentation is one of very common method of asexual reproduction, particularly in green plants like alga. You know, generally it is seen in plants and animal as well. In the process, fragments are produced because of some stress, or sometimes some fishes like animals come and they try to eat the filaments, and in the process, some parts are getting separated, and these separated parts, they can be converted into new fragment and then into new plant. So the Spirogyra is one of very common example of fragmentation asexual reproduction, where plants get separated from the main filaments, and then each and every filament which is separated from the main plant, they get converted into new whole Spirogyra plant. So in most of the plants, in most of the algae, you will find fragmentation as one of very common method of getting regenerated. Now vegetative propagation is one of the vital part where asexual reproduction takes place. Plant parts like a stem, roots, leaves and buds, they give rise to new plant. It can be in the form of runner, tuber, rhizome and bulb. These are also called vegetative parts of the plant. In the picture you can see that there are many adaptations showed. Each and every adaptation is giving rise to new plant. We would understand all these in detail in next slide. So first one is runner. Runner is kind of modified stem where horizontal stem grows or it runs over the soil surface. For example, strawberry. The terminal bud sends up a new shoots and it goes down new roots from it, and where it touches it is getting produced into new plant. Second one is rhizome. Species like grasses show such kind of modification where modified stem grows under the soil and it can be converted to roots, and then from the roots it is producing shoots, and then from the shoots whole plants are produced. So rhizomes are common method in grasses like families. Now very common example of tuber is potato. Shorter, thicker stems produce eye-like structure which is capable of producing a new plant, and we all know that eye of potato is specifically specifically utilized by plant to be converted into new plant. So potato is produced inside the soil, and this each and every tuber is always capable of giving rise to new plant. So tuber is one of very common method in asexual reproduction. Now in onion, bulbs are seen where stem is covered with modified leaves which can be converted into new plant. And the example of food storing root is carrot and beet. Roots are capable of producing new plants too. You can see in the picture that the modification of root is found in the carrots. We generally use carrots in our food as a raw, as well as as well as it can be fried, it can be fried, and it can be converted into many forms where we can utilize carrots particularly in our food. But it is example of food storing root which can be converted into new plant. It is a type of asexual reproduction as well. Now if we talk about leaf, some plants produce plantlets along with the edges of leaves, and they can reach up to certain size. They fall off and grow into new plants. For example, cactus, there are new plantlets produced, and each and every plantlet can give rise to the new plant. Now modified bud, if we talk about bud, onion, tulip are some of the very common example where a bulb which is underground has reduced stem, roots, fleshy leaves swollen with a stored food, and main bud in the center grows into a new plant. So daffodil, tulip and onion are some of the examples. Now vegetative propagation, it can be divided into two parts, natural as well as artificial. About natural propagation, we studied in earlier slide that there are some methods like runner, tuber, then bulbs, all these can be converted into new plant. But there are some artificial methods which are also useful to produce new plants, and cutting is one of them. Pieces of stem can be cut from parent plant, and then if they are kept in the water or most soil or sand, they will be converted into new plants. Example is many garden plants, like where artificial cuttings are utilized to produce new plants. In geranium, it is very common plant in most of the gardens. You can easily see that. Then grafting is also one of the method where buds or sections are cut from the main plant, which is attached to, that is already rooted in the soil. In the roses, grafting is very common method, and there are also examples of some fruit trees like chiku and all the others where grafting is utilized. One stalk is there and one scion part is there. Both are wrapped and waxed together with the use of polythene, and then they can be converted into new plant. Layering is one of the common method, artificial common method in vegetative propagation, where a branch of plant is bent over and pinned down into the soil at a node. It is covered over with a soil. Eventually, new roots and shoots are developed, which are useful for the propagation of woody plant like gooseberry and gooseberry. So layering is also one of the very common method, which can be called as an artificial vegetative propagation method. It is widely utilized in industries and gardens and nurseries to produce new plants. Tissue culture is very, nowadays it is very well-known method to produce new plants. When we have plants which are endangered, which are threatened species, and we want to have multiple copies of the plant, then we should propagate the plants from the different parts like leaf, stem, roots, or even from the flowers in the laboratory. So in vitro propagation of the plant is called tissue culture. The pieces of the center of the stem are removed and placed in the flask, and in the flask it is just like a operation theater, where a lab should be like operation theater, where plant tissue can be converted into whole plant. So sometimes callus is produced, and from the callus, rooting, and after the process of rooting and shooting, whole plants are produced. So tissue culture is one of very common method nowadays to produce seedless plants, to save endangered species, to conserve threatened plants. And there are many applications of tissue culture to produce transgenic plants. So many different types of cultures are produced using tissue culture. So genetical studies are also being carried out through the process of tissue culture. Harbalant was the scientist who gave introduction of tissue culture, and that is why he is known as a father of the process of tissue culture. Now, if we talk about some advantages of artificial vegetative propagation, new plant will have exact feature as their parent have. So genetically they are similar. Fruit trees grown by grafting bear fruit much earlier, so it would help to the farmers as per economic point of view. When fruits are getting early, farmers can have so much income. Plants need less attention in their early years, so this is also unique feature because plants are quite tolerant, so they don't need too much attention. Many plants can be grown just from single parent, so it will save plant material as well, because many plants can be produced from single parent. And most of the plants we can also produce seedless plants. So seedless plants are nowadays, they are selling with much price. For example, banana is it is very common example of seedless plant. In the market, banana is selling as at very high price, but seedless plant, they are also being sold by the farmers, and nowadays they are getting good economy. So there are so many benefits of this vegetative propagation and artificial vegetative propagation, which should be kept in mind when we are studying asexual reproduction. So with that, I hope you have understood the lecture, and if you have any questions or queries regarding that asexual reproduction, you can write it in the comment box. And thank you for your active and kind listening. I hope my my knowledge would be useful to all of you. For more videos, keep watching. Thank you all of you. Bye bye.